Welcome to Reset with Ball Doggett, a conversation connecting our industry. I'm Zadie Jackson, Business Development Manager for Ball Doggett, and I am pleased to be joined by Sam Dobie, who is the Group Creative Manager for John's Group Tasmania, and David Campbell, the Senior Designer at Museum of Old and New Mona in Tasmania. Welcome, guys.
Thank you. Thanks for having us.
Oh, it's an absolute pleasure. I've got to say, some of my favourite business trips down around the country is to Tasmania, because whenever I step into a creative studio or into a print site, I feel like I get a warm hug, and I really, really enjoy it. So I'm itching to get down there again. But what's that?
That I can attest to you enjoying yourself when you come down.
This is true, Sam. This is true. So thank you both for joining me again, and I'm really looking forward to exploring Tasmania. But before we do that, let's get our viewers acquainted with both you, Sam and David. Sam Dobie, as a passionate advocate for collaboration and using creative thinking to solve business problems, Sam has spent the past 13 years working in one of Tasmania's most successful full-service creative agencies. She has honed her skills as a senior creative and director, and has applied her thinking to campaigns that have resonated locally, nationally and internationally. Sam has been heavily involved in the evolution of the local Pike Awards into the state's premier creative industry platform, the DIEMAN Awards, which recognises excellence in design, print, advertising and the digital sectors. And as their chair for the last 4 years, Sam has been working hard to redefine the awards into a class-leading industry platform. These days, Sam has taken over the creative reins at John's Group, working with their numerous businesses on brands, marketing and comms as their group creative manager, and helping the teams build the next chapter of Tasmania's exceptional tourism journey. As well as this, 2020 has also seen her taking up a role as creative director in Tasmania's first virtual creative industry, Inclusive Creatives. With a focus on making inclusivity mainstream, this is a role driven by a passion to see business focus on the whole picture, and instead of making exceptions to the rule with their creative work, actually changing the rules altogether. I'm loving that, Sam. David Campbell is a designer with a strong interest in art and conceptually driven work. For the last 9 years, he has been the senior designer at the Museum of Old and New Art Mona in Hobart, Tasmania. Previously, he has worked with organisations such as the Australian Centre of Moving Image, ACME, the Melbourne Fringe Festival, Lab Architecture and Voice Works magazine. I'm in terrific company for this episode, guys, so let's get ourselves comfortable and jump into the first question. Now, I'll start off with you, Sam. Okay. I want to just start by checking in, and this is really what this Reset program is about. How are you? How are your teams? How are you navigating through this crazy time? I'll get you to kick off.
Yeah, well, look, I'm good. As you mentioned, there's a few different teams there that I suppose I touch base with regularly. Yeah. And each one's been really different. With the DIEMAN Awards, I think we've taken this opportunity to, essentially apply handbrake. Yeah. We very quickly realised that there was probably bigger things to focus on. You've seen, with David and his team, you've seen Mona completely, Dark Mofa, should I say, completely stop. The National Print Awards went digital. And so we sort of really had to stare it down and go, the realities of putting something like that together are quite complicated, and are people in a position to be focusing on something like that? So I think the team were quite thankful that they were able to, probably focus on their day-to-day, and now we're sort of coming back together and looking forward to, what the future holds for us, and when the awards will be and how they will be. So, I don't for a second think it's going to be business as usual for us, but I think it's exciting nonetheless. In the other two businesses that I'm involved in, as you said, IC, or Inclusive Creatives, is a virtual agency. And this, ironically, wasn't developed as a response to COVID, was well underway before that happened. Yes, but, right. We've seen this as nothing but a real positive, in that you bring a virtual product to market, and a market that wasn't necessarily aware that it could be a virtual market, I suppose. And now we've all been thrust into Zoom meetings and, file sharing and not being in offices and not having boardrooms and that sort of stuff. And so everyone's kind of gone, oh, yeah, okay, maybe this virtual thing's not so bad. So I think, we've been given permission by, the customer to go forth and prosper, for lack of a better word.
Absolutely.
And then the Johns Group, as you said, they're in the tourism side of things, and that's a completely different kettle of fish. So that's been a real, again, sort of tone it back. Maybe have a look at the way we're doing things. It is a quieter time. Is this a way for us to make the changes that we need because we've got the time? And so the team has had to pivot a little bit. It hasn't been a dramatic shift for us, as some people have, but they've taken that time and this opportunity to do things that, will hold us in better stead down the road. And I think we've certainly come out of that and said, we're in a better place than we were before. Our processes are better. We've had to focus on the local market, and that's been really good for us. Like, I think the market has received it well. We've done some new things. There's been space for the market to see us and hear us because it's not so crowded. And so, I understand it's been difficult, and I know that a lot of people have probably not been as lucky, but from where I sit and the amazing people that I work with, it's long run. I think it's going to be, dare I say, positive. Yeah,
absolutely. And feel free to do that, because this is really about an optimistic perspective and or a real perspective, to be really frank. But David, how about you guys? How's your team? How are you guys coping? We know Mona's closed at the moment.
Currently we're pretty cold, but look, it's been a really good time. I think we've been very fortunate in Tasmania with the COVID situation. The government locked the borders down here very early, so we haven't had any active cases down here for quite a long time. I think 70 days or something. So we've been very lucky, and we're obviously really concerned for all our friends and family on the mainland. Yep. We're fortunate with where we are at the moment. Like, all my friends in Melbourne are, going through the lockdown again, whereas here, we still aren't anywhere near that level.
Yeah.
We have been slightly released back into the wild, and we're back bushwalking, and we're back, having occasional team hangouts in person.
Yeah.
So there's a positive sense there, but it's we're very aware that this might be a temporary retrieve. We're not really sure. So look, I'd say we're all pretty hunkered down. I think, we're all working away. We've really changed what we're focusing on. Mona's a large organisation with a lot of things going on, and
yes.
The Dark Mocha team were the first guys to kind of realise, how bad this would become. They shut down first, and then we shut down the museum. Then all the other bits of the organisation, a lot of them have managed to amp up. So, we're doing a lot of work for the Marilla, the winery, and Domain A, and Moo Brew, and all the other bits and pieces.
Yes.
So we're kind of busy, but we've really shifted priorities, and it's a very different time for us, I think.
Yeah, I think, and you've nailed it there as well. Both of you sort of alluded to one, there's a pivot change and just concentrating on what's in front of you, and that's the Tasmanian market for the Johns Group. And for you guys, it's what's in front of you right now and what other assets does the business need in this moment. So, as though you say business as usual, it is to a certain degree, but it just has a different feel, and the priorities definitely has had to change. So, and that leads me into a question for both of you. Can you guys paint a portrait for me on your perspective of the industry as the whole? What's the feeling in the Tasmanian creative community at the moment? Sam?
I suppose I have been asking that question, and, because, I suppose with the DIEMAN side of things, I do speak to the printers and some of the design agencies and advertising guys and all that sort of stuff. It's again, I see it as a bit of a two-stage thing. You know, right now, I mean, let's be honest, this is the beginning. You know, or the end of the beginning, maybe for us, but it's hard. You know, I'm constantly hearing stories of people moving on to potentially more secure jobs, so shifting out of, you know, what they see as risky, and you know, going into maybe a government position or something like that, where, you know, they're finding a little bit more security, which is understandable. Which I suppose, but, you know, and yes, you're hearing of sort of people being laid off for, you know, reduction in sizes and hours and all that sort of stuff. But things like JobKeeper have certainly helped. I don't recall any sort of major sort of devastation, I suppose, within businesses. It seems to be like we're finding a way. You know, listening to what David had to say and stuff, you know, that seems to be a pretty familiar story as to how teams are coping. Yeah. Just scaling back and sort of trucking on. But I suppose the other side of that is, you know, it's quickly becoming apparent that they're not going to turn around and say, all right, guys, we tried COVID. Yeah, no one really liked it, so back to normal. Like, it's just not going to happen. So, you know, I see that as the long-term outlook, and it's what we do there when businesses realize that that's where we're sitting. Then it's, you know, then you can see it as that interesting time of change. So I actually wrote an article a little while ago in response to that exactly, which was, you know, as soon as we see this period as possibly the world's greatest creative brief, yeah, you know, it's, you know, everybody has turned around. If you were to say they were the client and said, oh, we've got a problem, COVID, you know, now what do we do? And, you know, and if you would write that as a brief and say, all right, well, the restrictions are that we're restricted and that we can't do business as normal, then it's the response to that that's interesting. And that's where, as a creative industry, we're in such a wonderful position to tap our bread and butter and our brains, you know, it's what we trade in, and come up with a response to that. You know, you look at, you know, so you say like Mona's clothes, but I've been keeping an eye on what you guys are putting out in social media, and, you know, all of a sudden there's this time and this hole to fill, and so now we've got a restaurant putting out the call for experimental menu testing. Now, yeah, you know, you guys could just be in the kitchen testing your food, but, you know, hey, let's make it a thing. And yeah, that's the kind of creative response I love to see. You know, there's the, you know, the one who has to, all right, you know, there's a shortage of hand sanitizers, fine, we'll make that. Now, you know, that's the kind of, that's creative thinking in essence. That is what it is, and that's what we do. So, you know, if people can say, all right, let's pause, let's assess what the problem is, let's see where we need to go and take stock of that stuff, then, you know, basically it's creativity has never been more important. You know, if you look at what people have been doing in lockdown, they haven't been turning to the stock market for entertainment, or, you know, sport's been absolutely decimated, or, you know, to sort of some effect. So they've been turning to the arts. You know, we are an absolute backbone for a lot of industries, important. And I think as soon as people realize, not as soon as people realize, because a lot of people do realize that, but, you know, good creativity and good creative thinking and design, and then you're able to reach that next level. And I think that's where people are probably finding themselves now, and hopefully pushing forward. It's how we respond long term, not, you know, not the immediate hardship. It's where we take it from here. Yeah,
it's the long play. It's the long play.
Yeah, it has to be. I mean, it's not going back. So yeah, that's.
And the creativity, and I think and you're right, the response through creativity and innovation, I think coupled together is such a critical part of it. And David, your thoughts on the industry and from a creative perspective, what's the feeling in Tassie at the moment?
Look, at the moment, I think the feeling in Tassie is pretty rough. I had a drinks meeting the other night with a bunch of Tasmanian designers. We went to a local pub where we sat 1.5 meters apart in the back beer garden. I think it was like 4 degrees or something.
Oh wow.
But we're fortunate enough to still be able to meet up in person. But there was a lot of, I think, generally speaking, they were quite worried. A lot of designers there, they're used to kind of working on projects 6 months in advance or a year in advance.
Yeah.
And then having kind of their more short-term projects. So all the short-term projects have died off. They have more longer-term things, but a lot of those are looking more iffy and as a bit more, unclear. So as with all of us, the JobKeeper program has been fantastic. It's helped out a lot of people, but a lot of the freelancers and creators I know, they're working freelance. They don't have that regular income. So that's on the kind of commercial end. On the kind of more arts end, which is I work a lot in as well, that's been an area that's been underfunded in this country for so long, and they've been running on this minimal amounts of money, and the people in the arts community do so much on the smell of an oily rag, and so they've suddenly lost their next gig or their next project. So I find a lot that's kind of decimated the arts industry side. So yeah, and I think that concern around, I think we all have this dream that we get downtime and then we all go and write a novel and paint our masterpiece or whatever. And I really noticed, especially early on in the whole thing, when everyone was quite worried, a lot of my friends were saying, they weren't feeling creative. They weren't making stuff. They weren't, artists weren't, the ones who had the projects, those kind of disappeared. But even people just working for themselves were doing a lot less. I have found now more down here as we're starting to open up a bit again, and there's a feeling of some positivity.
Right.
There is more people doing, I think that's coming back, and I'm seeing that more. How we're going to resurrect so much, we have such ecology of how the creative industries work in this country, and we just, there's been a whole section that's been sliced out. This kind of break has forced, it's in people's careers and people's trajectories.
Yeah.
And as Sam was saying, people are leaving and going off and getting government jobs,
yep.
Or they're getting other jobs, or they're moving out of the industry a bit more. And so there's going to be a brief period when we kind of, that timeline of kind of creativity we're so used to is going to be knocked aside or shunted. So I'm interested to see how well it comes back. I think it's a resilient bunch of people who work in the industry. You're not there if you can't, make projects with no money, or if you can't take knockbacks, or if you can't change and do whatever you want. But it's going to be a while. It's going to be a slightly different kind of creative scene. So yeah, to the short answer to what the creative community is doing down here, I would say they're worried. And they're resilient. They'll hold on and do their things, but it's a difficult time, I think, for everyone.
But I think in that concern and wanting to be secure, I think the one thing that resonates with me with the creative community across this country is the support for one another. And if there's an opportunity to collaborate, then people are being brought in. And look at our artists, our musicians, our entertainers. Same thing there. They've really had to work out a way to survive and do what they need to do. So
I have so many friends who transitioned to suddenly now teachers online, or have shifted. All my muso and theatre friends have transitioned quite capably and ably. I'm quite impressed with how quickly they've done it. Whereas a lot of people I know in the commercial space, because the timeline's slower and maybe haven't moved as easily.
Yeah.
They're more secure, so it's easier. You can be both secure and also means you're a bit more resistant to change, I think.
Yeah, I agree.
Oh, sorry.
No, go, Sam.
I was just going to say, Zaid and Dave, listening to you there, you're absolutely right. My perspective doesn't come from that freelance. I don't have that direct link. I'm aware of it, but not on the ground as you are, I suppose. But, to go back to, what I'm calling my stage 1 and stage 2 COVID response, stage 1 is very much what we're talking about now. It's that uncertainty, it's things drying up, it's, not everybody has pivoted yet. We haven't found our feet again. There's no sort of equilibrium, any of that sort of stuff. It's just not business as usual. But then to sort of go to that stage 2, like try and find that positivity. You know, you're absolutely right, Dave, in that, you know, for the longest time, this sector, both the commercial creative sector and the arts creative sector, has been, I mean, not that I think you'd expect funding on a commercial level, but certainly the art side of thing, where, you know, the government, there should be a responsibility and an onus for them to support that. This period in time has done nothing but shine a spotlight on how important, again, it is what we do, what the arts do, what the importance of creativity, I think, is what I'm trying to get at. And, you know, now when, you know, like I look at Tasmania and, you know, the way our government has responded in terms of reaching out to the tourism sector and businesses and saying, you know, there's a website that's been built, which is Buy Something Tasmanian, you know, and all of a sudden there's this real focus on the local product and, you know, local shops and you know, suppliers and you know, and it's from the boutique right up to, you know, the bigger scale stuff. But there is that sort of inward focus. You know, for so long we've been looking out, like, let's get everybody into Tasmania. It's, you know, it's a bucket list destination. But, you know, all of a sudden it's like, oh, right, hang on, well, what about you? What can I do to help you and my neighbour, and, you know, that community side of things, and, you know, making sure that we're all okay. And that's where we come in. You know, it's, you know, where is the creative thinking? Where, you know, where's the focus on the importance of what we do to help those people? You know, because you've got a product or something that you need to get out there, you know, it's a business, a product, whatever it needs to be. It's without the right comms or creativity or packaging or, you know, then you don't have a voice, you don't have that story. And, you know, there is a difference between what we do and what, you know, someone's niece in year 12 with Photoshop does. Like, yeah, okay, fine, we use the same tools. But in the same way that I can cook my food here, but I still go to a restaurant because I know somebody's going to give me a better experience and there's going to be a story behind that. And, you know, it's the whole package. That's the same, you know, for us, you know, we are the professionals and we can take something that other people are doing and we can get it out there for them. And so, yeah, I guess, you know, maybe this is our opportunity to tap into that government sector and say, hey guys, we actually are important and people are turning to us to help them out of this situation, whether it be for entertainment or on a commercial level. And yeah, we're important and don't forget us and turn to us because we can help. You know, it's creative thinking, business solutions is sort of my motto, really. Yeah.
I find here with like the Tasmanian scene is so like, so there's the art stuff and that's, you know, needs government money and other things. Looking at the commercial stuff for local, so much local industry for designers and creatives is kind of tourism, accommodation, and specialty kind of produce. You know, the wineries and you know, there's 4 million breweries and distillers and stuff down here now. So that's a kind of one of the really core areas a lot of people, including myself, does work in. Yeah. And that it's a really good niche industry. It's always kind of gone into the high-end restaurants and the cool little bars and the whole kind of burgeoning food scene. So all those people I thought would actually be okay, like a lot of the wine producers I work with, who I would think would be super happy, you know, a lot of them are losing their restaurants and their bars and those kind of things. So there's been a really strong push down here to set up local markets, like the Dark Lab guys. So Dark Lab's part of Mona, the big Mona family. They set up a market they've been running for all local producers, and there's local markets and there's local delivery initiatives going on like really strongly. We've been doing stuff with Moo Brew, our brewery, we do winery, do deliveries. We've done a lot, like we did a Lonely Beers Club where we deliver. So good. Yeah, so the guys at the brewery wanted to do like some experimental beers. And so they started this thing called the Lonely Beers Club. And so, yeah, they would every 2 weeks do a small, tiny, like 100 cans of a weird experimental beer. And then if you're lucky enough to buy quick, they sell it very quickly, but then, you know, 2 hours later, they'd turn up at your doorstep and you'd get this crazy beer that they'd developed.
Oh, isn't that marvelous?
Yeah, so they'd selling stuff with, you know, a winery truck would go around and deliver their beers and their wines, and there's other little businesses around the place who are doing a lot of kind of local produce and a lot of local delivery. So there's been the local focus has been really impressive. And
what's really interesting there, Dave, is, you know, I guess to anybody who doesn't know Mona as well as probably Tasmanians do, but you're such an interesting case in terms of the way the business is set up. Like, you've got all of these production arms, festival arms, you know, your wine and your beer, you've got restaurants, you've got a museum, and you've got these amazing creative shops behind you. But therein lies that whole argument. Like, if everybody could tap an agency or a creative shop the way that those businesses do, because you guys have it in-house. You know, so things like Lonely Beers Club, or, you know, the Hanging Garden markets that he was talking about, or you know, your experimental restaurant stuff at Faro, like, that is born out of creative thinking. That is exactly what I'm talking about. Like, if you have the ability to tap experts in that field, your product is going to be better for it, and your position is going to be better for it. You know,
we're very fortunate. Like, we're like, because of where we sit, we're very fortunate. You know, we're funded better than, you know, because of Mona and the scale of our businesses. We're kind of a lot bigger than a lot of the local producers.
Yeah, that's right.
So, you know, the things like the market is deliberate intent to bring in the local producers as well. But yeah, we're very fortunate in our funding, which I think, you know, a lot of the local ones don't have the access to those kind of things.
You both, I mean, you've actually stepped into a question, and Sam and I talk about this all the time, you know, the difference between good and great design. And especially right now when there's an evolving terrain that is sometimes an unknown, and how does design step into that space? Because you're right, the robust bespoke community and artisanal community in Tasmania is phenomenal, and you've just demonstrated exactly what the response has been to the situation we're all facing right now. But what you're talking about, Sam, is providing the brand equity that product and, you know, that deserves, that the consumer deserves as well, you know, and creating this incredible loyal experience when it comes to looking at products and services. And it's not about, you know, the niece, you know, doing a great job on Photoshop. It's actually a craftsperson, a creative that has worked hard and has the strategic and considered experience to deliver a brand and really drive a return on investment for somebody.
I guess they're really strong. Like, I remember when I first moved down here, and there's all these great little producers making stuff. So I moved down here 9 years ago, and there was, you know, all these little specialty niche things, but people weren't really showing them much, or, you know, there wasn't much packaging, or kind of. And then there's a few companies that kind of went out. I mean, to me, it's like Willie Smith's cider, or like an Apple Farmers did cider. These other little places that started kind of actually packaging their stuff and presenting it. Because Tassie's always undersold itself very badly. It's always kind of been quite internally focused, and it's had all this amazing stuff, and I don't think Tasmanians have appreciated it that much. And then as the places opened up, and as people come here and go, wow, this is incredible, and I think Tasmanians maybe have got more of a pride, or I hope that, you know, there's that sense of that. But what's really led the way so much out of that last kind of push was the things that have done good design. Like those brands that really cared and made the effort to make something look great or go a bit further, they've all gone really well over the past 10 years as they've become well known. I think a lot of all these other producers, all of whom are also doing great stuff, are looking around and going, oh, I can do that as well. And as we do this next, you know, as the recovery comes through, I think, you know, all the smart ones look around going, obviously the ones who have done that, who've spent the time, made the effort, invested in great design and their packaging, have meant that when the boom times happen, then you're ready and you can go somewhere with it.
Absolutely. And I mean, you know, I'm always going to advocate for print, but it doesn't matter which thing I'm on. You've got to know that. And I'm company with the both of you here, but the reality is having a brand that is being developed and designed and it's articulate and then being translated through substrate, and somebody actually have this an emotive experience and connectivity to the brand just by touching it. That changes the ball game to another level, and that's why packaging is actually soaring right now for us. And it should be, because, you know, FMCG, all that sort of stuff, homemade deliveries, you know, restaurants have pivoted, all that sort of everything to do with what we do. You need to get something delivered, and what people forget is that print is actually still the most powerful messaging tool.
I mean, it's you know, we as creatures are just so tactile and visceral, and you know, we want to be entertained. And it's, you know, it's when you talk about like the Tassie, you know, the boutique market. I mean, you go into a bottle shop now, and you know, like, not necessarily a cheap product. And so it's the beautifully designed stuff, the stuff that I can touch, the thing with a little extra swing tag or a sexy, you know, form and function kind of box or something. And it's like, I want to pick it up, I must have it. And yeah, that sort of stuff is so important. I mean, even down to when you get a parcel, like you've bought something online and it comes and it's got a little handwritten note or something. It's like, oh, you know, that's nice. Like, we like stuff like that, and we're drawn to it. And it's, you know, I'd go down to say it's important, and it creates memorability and talkability, and it's all that sort of stuff. And, you know, I have to say that I find it to sort of, okay, the inclusive creative guys that I'm with, so they're working in this inclusive, I suppose, field. You know, their charter is to make inclusivity mainstream, like you were saying. Yeah. And to do that, you know, the team has been working very hard with the NDIS and to sort of get our accreditation there, so that barrier to afford good design and branding and stuff is removed, because, you know, it has been covered by the scheme to some extent, if not fully. And so all of a sudden, these people who are not experts in marketing and branding and comms have the access to, you know, it's one less hurdle for them to get into market. And it's a little frustrating, because, I mean, it's great and it's exceptional, and you know, recognizing that these people might be very good at what they do, but they're not good at what we do, you know, and that's fine. Like, be an expert in what you do, and then rely on the experts in the other stuff to help you get the whole package. And I kind of would, you know, utopia would love them to go, you know, just because you're not necessarily disabled, or, you know, you're fully abled, doesn't mean you are any better at marketing or packaging or getting your product out there. You know, yes, it's important to help, but I think, you know, that's where equality, it's almost like reverse equality. It's, you know, it's important that, I think, again, that we have the recognition of the importance of what it is that we do. And, you know, we push for that. You know, it takes an industry, you know, the Daves and the people in charge of DIEMANs and AGDA and all those kind of people, and the print awards, and to sort of go, all right, you know, let's speak to the right people and push for a focus.
And I think with that, education, Sam, I think it's a really important part of it all. And I mean, we talk about, I mean, David and I, we spoke about this last week, I think, when I was fortunate to join you guys at the DIEMAN Awards in November last year. I spent many, many hours getting lost in Mona, and literally had to have help to carry out all the publications and put it in my hire car and then send it on our shipping across the water back to Melbourne. And I want to step into that space. You know, a few years ago, I read a quote with Alan Joyce. I think it was like 2013, that I think Qantas literally had like 63%. There was an increase in 63% and Jetstar 17% of travellers coming through. Now, we spoke about this because I literally wouldn't have been able to afford to take all the 16 books that I did buy.
What was your house?
Look, my study looks amazing. Thank you, Mona and David. What considerations, David, have you guys had to make from a publication perspective, you know, when you are producing these exquisite, you know, publications for exhibitions, and keeping in mind most of the guests that are experiencing Mona are travelling to Tasmania, and it's overnight luggage and things like that. So do you want to, and please share that little story about a pen. I'd love everyone to hear as well.
Yeah, I mean, so publications have always been really important to Mona. So David, the owner, is, you know, he loves books. He has a library of, I don't know, 20,000 books or something. Like, he collects publications. And so, yeah, I think there's something that's really important to us. Like, there's such an important record of exhibitions and of projects that we do. And we've always kind of gone real, you know, bells and whistles. Like, we've spent a lot of time and effort
Yes.
make beautiful publications, which have been just a delight to work on. So the first one we did was Monisms, which you've probably seen. It's a big black.
Yes.
So that was Lee Carmichael, who now runs Stark Mofo, did that. And it was a particular size, and it weighs like 4 kilos or something.
Case in point.
You could stun a bear with it, like it's ridiculous. But yeah, it's a beautiful publication. And we kind of, the next book we did after that, we kind of realized how great it was to kind of keep that size and that format. So we kind of love the idea that if you're a Mona fan and you buy our books, every time we do a major show, we do the same, it's always the same format. So over time, your shelf will just become this kind of long, will dominate kind of whole area of someone's bookshelves with these massive hardback kind of monstrosities.
Publications.
Yeah, totally. And then for smaller projects and, smaller shows, we've done, things that are easy to carry and things that people, can be cheaper. But yeah, look, we did it, we get all these funny bits of feedback. Early on, we started getting people would, try to fly back, they'd come down for the day and they'd try to buy 2 of books and try to get back to Melbourne and get these crazy excess luggage fees. We sell a little, it's like it looks like a syringe, it's like a pen, has red ink, and it's got Mona on it. And people they'd come here, they'd go back through customs to leave Tasmania, and the pen would be confiscated because they're worried about looking too much like a weapon or something, and the book would be too heavy, and they'd get an excess baggage fee. And so, we now obviously warn our customers, in shop they actually tell people, don't put the pen in your hand luggage. Are you aware that this is going to weigh 37 kilos to get this book back or whatever? We also made the decision not to change, that format is, we love the size and the format and the scale. It's not the most economical print size, but it's, it's kind of what we got. We're locked into it. And so we've done probably about 15 of those scale books. I think I've worked out recently, we've been joking for a long time about making a giant box set, which holds them all, which is 28 kilos. So we're trying to design a coffee table that it kind of fits into. So you can buy the whole.
Could be the coffee table.
Coffee table.
You do realise what your next business needs to be a most office. It's the Mona Post Office, and you offer a special delivery service.
I think we have more than enough sub businesses, but thank you for the thought. The post with the most. I did a series last year called Art from Mona, which is like a literally a smaller, more portable, more accessible way of doing it. Going, if you want to buy something that you can, a bunch of souvenirs for your friends or something that's a bit easier to carry, it's a bit more accessible than buying an $85 tome that's going to weigh half a ton. But look, we're still going to do some of those big ones. They're beautiful things to work on. They're such a wonderful to have, to make an object that's kind of considered and permanent. It's quite
absolutely. And I'm going to say keep doing them. The bigger the better. And the
always we can.
The curation that you guys literally execute with those publications are superb. So congratulations. I'm a big fan.
Thank you.
Sam, I want to chat into the DIEMAN Awards. You've been chair for the last 4 years, and I do want to say congratulations. I was privy enough to watch the 37th Annual National Print Awards, the PPCAs, and you delivered the award to Kirsten Taylor for the first inaugural Women in Print Award. And the anecdote you spoke about equality and women, so I think that was quite powerful, and thank you for that. But you work with some incredible people on that committee, including the lovely Gary Nielsen. And, this campaign really does celebrate the best in creativity from all those elements of advertising at print and design and digital. Share with us what the awards really mean to the Tasmanian community.
Well, I think I'm biased. Look, ultimately, when I joined the team, so it was actually about 6 years ago when I joined, and it was just as their events sort of manager, I suppose, and trying to get the night into a more sort of exciting kind of space. But we sat down and, we stared down, because it used to be obviously the the Tasmanian Piker Awards.
Yes.
And you needed to sort of look at it, I think, from a whole of industry perspective. And if we're going to change the name, what else needed to be done, and what is it? Why are we doing this? It's what is the whole purpose? And for us, it was about creating something of value. So that doesn't happen overnight. You don't just sort of go to somebody or an industry and go, hey, everyone's got certificates and some nice trophies. Great, value us. I mean, you have to build integrity in the show, and we've tried to do that. So we every year we're sort of trying to expand our judging pool, get bigger and more impressive names down to do the judging, because you want to make sure the right people are judging your work. And we're seeing, or I see as I go into different studios and stuff, all of a sudden there's Grand DIEMAN trophies popping up on display, and there's a couple of shops in town that have done quite well, and that they've gone all out. Like there's with other things that they've won, so it's not just us, it's other award shows so they're obviously good, and they're proudly displaying them, which is so lovely to see. But the one thing I find, and it's a little bit of a frustration, is every now and again someone's like, awards, why enter them? What's the point? And yes, it's easy to say, it's a lovely time for us to all get together and pat each other on the back, and reflect on work that's been done. But I sort of say, why not awards? Back to the restaurant analogy, chefs get awarded. We give trophies for excellence in sport. There's business awards. I mean, we work as an industry so hard, and it is subjective to a point, and it can feel like you're bashing your head against a wall, and things don't just happen easily, and getting things approved and budgets approved and time constraints and all these things that you're constantly battling against as an industry, and then at the end of it to be able to produce something as beautiful as whether it's the Mona Books or Tailored Press, Kristen and what they were doing, that work is stunning, and it's worthy of celebration, and we work hard, so damn it, why not awards? So if we're going to have an awards, then we make it the best we can be. And I hope and that people don't just say nice things to me to my face, and that genuinely they are finding some value in what we're doing. That it is an opportunity to see what the rest of the industry is doing, that it is an opportunity to touch base with people in industry. We've had quite a large focus on linking, I suppose, the actual industry itself with the students, the up-and-coming industry. So, I can sort of remember back when I was a uni student, and, people in positions like us were just untouchable. And it's not because we are untouchable. I mean, we're just people. But at that age, when you're so young and so green, it just seemed like this unsurmountable mountain to sort of reach those levels of the big agencies and the beautiful work. And, I'd like to break down those walls, and I think as a team working to create these awards, I'd like to break down, we would like to break down the silos within the industry itself. So, we'd like to see printers being brought in at a much earlier start of production and concept development, and bringing their skill set of what can be done, and them challenging ideas and ideas challenging them, and them going, I don't know if we can, but we'll figure it out. Because maybe we do have a moment in time where we've got a little bit of breathing room, and we're not flat out like we've, it never seems to get, like, nobody ever says, I'm not as busy as I used to be. It's just this constant, which is manic. And now we've got this moment to breathe, and it's like, okay, well, let's start collaborating and pushing that agenda, and, bringing value and adding value, should I say, to each other's projects. Yeah. So, I think the awards, whilst they are good, I think there's a lot of growth still there, and for us to stand for more than just an awards as well, to actually be a peak body for the industry, and maybe to find that ear within governments and funding, and see if we can make a difference beyond just awarding ourselves. And I'm hoping that with time, and when we deserve it, that everybody, or that the industry will be on board and accept what we do and be proud of what we do. I mean, that's ultimately, we're not doing, I mean, there's 6 of us doing it, and we're not doing it for ourselves. Like, we're all very, very busy any other day of the week. We're doing it for industry. And so, you know, we love feedback. We try and change and adapt as much as we can. You know, and we measure ourselves against other awards, and I'd like to think that we are trying to be a leader in that space and trying to evolve the platform so that it doesn't become irrelevant, because you know, it's our biggest critics are our audience, and we need to stay relevant. Yeah.
Well, so Sam, what is a DIEMAN's Awards of the COVID era? Like, what is the plan for this year? Is it online? Do you have some sense of that, or can you?
Yeah. We actually, you've sort of probably jumping the gun a little bit, but I mean, it's safe to say that, no, that's cool. I can make announcements. I'm in charge. No one's going to stop me. No, we've taken this opportunity. It's not happening in November. So as you were saying, last November, we had the 2019 awards. I think we've had this chance to go, all right, is this the best time to have it? Or is this just where we've always traditionally had our award shows? So we're looking to push it into the end of the first quarter next year, which we're hoping takes some of the pressure off for the barriers to enter, which are, it's the end of the year and we're all crazy busy, you know, and so we come back, we're refreshed, we can reflect on the calendar year that was. You know, we've got a few things in the pipeline to sort of make putting work away a little bit easier, so that you're not kind of like, you know, which drawer is it in, and you know, what was that project, and so a way of sort of keeping records to help entering. But yeah, so we're looking to take it into March, April next year.
Accepting print jobs done at office work.
Hey, listen, you know,
I might jump in there and steer us back on course, if that's all right.
Don't say the O word, she says. No. Yeah, look, it's that's the plan, and the other side of that was obviously not wanting to put any unnecessary pressure on our sponsors. Yeah. You know, I'd rather them join us later than tell us they can't be part of it at all, because they're an important part of the family. So yeah. Okay. Yes.
David, I'm going to jump into with Mona. I mean, this year would have been the 10th anniversary.
It's actually technically, it's January next year.
January next year, so you guys would have been preparing for it, you know.
Yeah.
And even though the doors are sort of closed, you guys are active with everything else around it. And I think it's had such incredible impact on the Tasmanian tourism and economy. What does Mona mean to you, for someone that, you know, really is part of that creative fabric and influencing design and direction?
I had been designing, I finished off a job back in 2011 designing the Melbourne Fringe Festival, and I sat down at the end of the whole project and looked at the work that I'd done and decided that I was out of design. I was just over it. This is a watershed moment. I'm done, changing career. And then a friend sent me a link saying there's this new museum has just opened in Hobart, and it's got a brewery and a vineyard and a music festival. And I'm like, well, you know, does it make cheese? And
not yet.
Like, no. And I was like, well, look, 4 out of 5 is pretty good. So I came down like the Sunday, walked in and went, okay, this is something new and this is fascinating. You know, I've been to museums all over the place, and this is something interesting and different. And so, yeah, I think I basically, you know, started work about 2 days later. And that was about 9 years ago. It's been like an amazing experience watching, you know, I remember the early days, you know, I mean, there'd been a lot of core team working on it for years and years before that. But when we first started, like, our audiences were tiny and we're just kind of starting to build the place, and it's always been a very design focused organization. So we've kind of had a massive role in setting agendas of how we talk and how we look and what we do. Lee Carmichael, the original designer, went and set up Dark Mofo, which is become its own kind of beast as a giant festival. Yeah. And it's also, you know, as a kind of this in-house creative agency, we've had this opportunity to work across so many different things. Like, I've worked in museums before, and all you do is work on catalogs, or you do one thing. Whereas someone like Mona, like, one day you're doing beer cans, the next day you're doing wine labels, the next day you're building a website, the next day you're doing a festival, and then an event, and then a book, and then an exhibition. And so it's had a diversity of projects and a kind of care and interest around design. And, I grew up studying Marina Abramovich and, Gilbert George and all those kind of artists. And then I've had a chance to work with all of them, which is not something I would expect to have done anywhere in the world. I would never have, in working the galleries, used to work in Melbourne, I never would have had the chance to work with artists of that caliber. And then I got the chance to do it in Hobart, which is even more unexpected. It's been incredible to watch. Mona has become such a kind of tipping point for the tourism industry. I don't think it's not the only reason people come to Taz. It's just, I think people started coming and noticed that there's all this other amazing stuff here. And Taz is now, rightfully become famous for a whole bunch of other things. But it's I think someone worked out last year we brought in $135 million for the state through our tourist activity, which you think it's just kind of one man's interest in art and his particular collecting philosophy and his basically sense of humor and in wanting to have the soapbox to make stuff and show stuff and talk about stuff has led to this one kind of cultural space that has such influence. So look, it's been an incredible time. Obviously we're all keen to look at reopening, getting up and going, and it's been fun watching, some of the team have been working on the Sparrow Experiments thing. So we have a restaurant, which is one of our, I think I tried to count at some point how many businesses sit under the Mona umbrella. It's not 300, but it's close. I think I've done, there's about 27 brands or 26 brands or something ridiculous. But yeah, so Faro is a newer restaurant. And so as part of a very, chance to open up Bits the Museum again, we're doing this thing called the Faro Experiments, which are a series of dinners, which are kind of experimental. So our back of house guys and all the food guys, Vince and his team, get to make interesting, cool experimental food. And
fantastic. They're
running a bunch of experiments on people, which I don't actually know what they are yet, but they're, so they're quite, small seated, COVID appropriate, high-end dinner parties. They've all sort of sold incredibly well. There's a real, the public are really keen to get back in there, and we're keen to open up bits so we can. We also have there's a light sculpture that we have. I don't know if you've seen this before, Zadie. It's called Spectra. That's by an artist called Roger Akita.
Yes.
So it's 49 giant xenon spotlights that sit a couple of meters apart from each other in a giant cube, and they all fire directly upwards. And they meet, depends on who you talk to. It's either 8 kilometers or 15 kilometers up in the sky. And they'll slightly lean in. They kind of near where you start running out of oxygen. So you hit this one tower of light. So we used to turn it on.
This way, I live 40 kilometers out of Hobart, and on a Saturday night when I'm sitting outside with a beer, I can see his torch.
Yeah, it's big. It's I've seen it from the bottom end of Brie. So it's a massive light. So we used to turn it on. We originally turned it on for the first or second Dark Mofo, and then David bought the work and built it into Mona, and then it was turned on every winter solstice and then summer solstice. But during this whole lockdown period, David decided to turn it on every single Saturday night. So you had this one 14 kilometer high tower of light coming out of Mona, which the local community and all of us love. You look for it, and people all over the place. It's on Instagram. It's just a really kind of positive. And David said we'll turn this on every Saturday night until we reopen.
I love that.
So so our dinners are people doing the Saturday night dinner can go at. So the whole site's been closed for months, but if they can go there for the dinners, they can also go in and see the work, because it's amazing up close. It's also amazing 40 kilometers away. But it's
nice connectivity with the brand too, and just the feeling of that too, which is really cool.
People it's on Instagram all the time, and people write to us every Saturday going, thank you for this kind of it's showing the work. It's incredible work. It's just so simple and pure, and it's got pretty serious scale. So
I'm looking forward to sitting in your backyard very soon, Sam, hopefully, to
that'd be nice,
and watching that myself. So hopefully these things do roll out sooner than later. But guys, David and Sam, thank you so much for your generosity to sit with me today on today's episode. And thank you for celebrating Tasmania. It's literally one of my favourite destinations. And I think once we are through this incredible time, the tourism numbers will go up. And, you know, as you were saying, it's still the second most visited tourism destination in Tasmania. That's phenomenal. Sam, I'm looking forward to seeing the DIEMAN Awards in 2021. However that shape is, I know you guys are going to do it absolute justice, and you know, the hospitality and generosity of the work that sits on a global scale that comes out of Tasmania. I know as an Aussie, I'm bloody proud of that. So thank you for sharing that with us, and thank you for sharing Tassie with us today.
Zadie, thank you for having us, and thank you for putting these together. They're a really good initiative.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that feedback.
Yeah, I second that 100%. This is just... Well, this is an example of a business pivoting. You can't come to us, so, you know.
I will come to the masses somehow, my friends. And I want to do a good shout out to our viewers who've been fantastic in supporting this initiative. And with all our episodes, we always ask our guests, what does optimism look like to you in your business right now? So head down in the description in this video to see the responses from Sam, Dobie and David Campbell. And please comment and share your thoughts on that and this video. And don't forget to subscribe to our channel, because we are releasing every Friday at this point. Guys, I'm looking forward to when I can crack a beer with you guys in Tassie next time. Until then, I'm Zadie Jackson for Ball Doggett. Stay well. Thank you.
Cheers, guys. Thank you.
Thank you so much.